So if it has to the point where we were before,
oh, okay, you're right. Okay. That'd be great.
at least
All right, Jabal, say good morning. Let's begin. First of all, I want to thank Saeed for preparing the breakfast. There is not yet a breakfast sponsor. So if you would like to be a breakfast sponsor or a partial sponsor or any amount of sponsorship, you could please see Saeed after the shir, and he will be happy to take your information. But Saeed Yeshakach, thank you for bringing a little bit of kemach to our Torah. All right, so we'll say with that, let's begin. And again, a mazel tov to Dovi and Tanina on the birth of a baby boy, Baruch Hashem, incredible. And also another mazel tov to Mr. Martyr, who Baruch Hashem celebrated his 90th birthday with the Kehila yesterday. Mazel tov, Adnei Esim Shanim Tovos. Mazel tov, mazel tov. All right, so let's begin. I know that Yehuda got through the Mishnah yesterday. We're actually going to pick up, today's daf is Pei Vav, 86. We are picking up at the Mishnah Pei Hey Amud Beis, 85b. So a sugya still continuing in the same motif that we've been focusing on up until now, which is the halachos concerning certain things. We've been focusing on what doesn't belong on the mizbeach. Now we're switching gears a little bit. It's really been the theme of the last couple of mishnayos, that what if it goes up on the mizbeach. We've discussed that many things, even if they shouldn't be there initially, im alu, once it's on there, lo yardu, you don't take it down. So continuing along that same theme, the Mishnah says as follows: ve'ilu im alu yardu. So we'll say now we're switching gears a little bit. Now the following is a list of things where even if they are placed on the mizbeach, we in fact do take them down. So we'll say, so now I'll give you a little bit of just an intro to this. The items that if we put them on, we take them down are the items that don't really belong on the mizbeach at all. In other words, if you belong on the mizbeach, but ultimately, as we've established, there is some what we'll call it flaw in the sacrificial law, I should say differently, or there's some type of issue within a detail of sacrificial law, then we say once you're up on the mizbeach, we leave you up there. Is if there's an inherent disqualification in the animal itself, we take it down. The following is a list of items which are just never burnt on the mizbeach. So because they're never burnt on the mizbeach, if somehow they wind up on the mizbeach, the halacha is we take them down. So ve'elu im alu yardu. These items, if they were mistakenly placed on the mizbech, we take them down. What are we talking about over here? Basar kadshe kadashim, ubasar kadshim kalim. So we'll say, so first of all, the Mishnah says over here, the meat of kadshe kadashim, kadshim kalim. We'll say, why do these not go on the mizbech? Because these karbanos are consumed. They're normally eaten. Remember, up until now, we've been focusing on the olah, which is fully consumed on the mizbech. These items here, ultimately, again, are consumed. They don't belong on the mizbech. So if you accidentally put them on, you take them off. Moser ha'omer, if you have anything left over from the karban ha'omer, again, also supposed to be consumed. If it wound up on the mizbech, you take it down. Shtei halechem, we'll say shtei halechem is the special karban of Shavuos, which again, also consumed. If it ends up there, you take it down. Lechem apanim, we'll say lechem apanim, first of the 12 loaves, consumed by the Kohanim every Shabbos, the Shabbos that they go off shift. They take the lechem apanim, doesn't belong on the mizbech. If it winds up there, you take it down. V'shiyarei menachos. We'll say shiyarei menachos means leftover. What's leftover of mincha? Remember, as we've spoken about the number of times, when you give a karban mincha, there's only a very small amount of the mincha offering that is placed on the mizbech. We call that the kmitza, right? The komets. Kohen takes 3 fingerfuls of flour of the mixture, places it on the mizbeach. That's burnt. The rest of it is consumed by the kohanim. If the remainder of the mincha ends up on the mizbeach, then halacha lamaisa, we take it back down. Vaktoris. Ketoris means the incense. Again, ketoris is interesting because ketoris shouldn't be anywhere near the outer mizbeach. Obviously, the kohen took a wrong turn somewhere. He's offering up ketoris on the outer mizbeach. It has no shaykhs to the outer mizbeach. You take it down. Semer shebarashe kvasim. This refers, I will say, to the wool on the head of sheep, or sa'ar shebezakim tiyashim, or literally the beard of goats. So we'll say, so this is the heads of these animals, which again do not belong on the mizbeach. Vatsamos, bones, gidim, sinews, karnaim, horns, talfayim, hoofs, bisman shein mechubarim ya'alu. If they are attached to the actual animal itself, then what? Then the maisa again, it goes up on the mizbeach. Shenemar v'hiktira kohen es hakol, because the pasuk says the kohen shall burn everything. Pirshu, and I will say this, we're going to spend a little bit of time on this interesting halacha. If, however, the bones, the sinews, the horns, or the hoofs become separated from the animal, then lo yalu. Then they are not offered up on the mizbeach. Shenemar v'asisa olasecha habasar v'hadam, because the pasuk says you shall offer up the olah, the basar and the dam, which sounds like what Rabbi say, that the only thing that's offered up on the mizbeach is what? Is the basar and the dam, is the meat and the flesh, but not any of these what we'll call animal accessories, bone, sinews, horns, hoofs. So we'll say, so the Mishnah teaches us therefore a number of halachos. Halacha number 1 is that if something is not normally offered up on a mizbeach, and it accidentally arrives there, what's the halacha? Take it down. That's halacha number 1.
That's before it goes on the fire?
Oh, good. We're going to discuss the parameters of this halacha. Good. We're going to discuss that. So the answer, it sounds like, is it's at any point in time that you recognize what's been done. So as soon as you realize that these items don't belong on the mizbeach, you take it down. Obviously, if it's ash already, it's been fully, there's nothing to talk about. But we're going to discuss that. That's halacha number 1. Halacha number 2, Rabbi say, is that we have 2 contradictory psukim. One pasuk that sounds like when it comes to karbanos, all you burn is meat and blood, but not bones, sinews, horns, hoofs. A second pasuk sounds like you burn the karban in its entirety, including all of these items. How do we go ahead and reconcile that discrepancy? So the way the Mishnah seems to say is as follows. If the bones, sinews, horns, hoofs are attached to the animal, then we burn it all. The moment they become detached is we no longer burn it on the mizbeach. We're going to define the parameters of that halacha as well. Says the Gemara. Tan Rabbanan. V'hiktar kohen. So now 2 lines are from the bottom, PM and base 85b. Tan Rabbanan. V'hiktar kohen es hakol mizbecha. So the pasuk says the kohen will burn everything on the mizbeach. Everything over here a reference to the karban. The kohen will burn the karban in its entirety on the mizbeach. The rabbos, what does that come to include? Ha'atzamos va'agidim ha'karnayim va'talfayim. They will say that comes to include everything means everything. Bones, sinews, horns, hoofs. Make a song out of it. Horns, bones, horns, sounds good. Yachal afilu perishu. But I might have thought that even if these items become detached from the animal, what happens again I will say, so let's say the meat is detached from the bone, the sinews come off, the hooves are cut off, the horns are cut off. So I would have thought even if they're separate from them, they're still offered. Talmud lomar va'asisa olasecha habasar v'hadam. Therefore, the pasuk says you shall go ahead and offer up the olah. But what part of the olah do you offer up? The meat and the blood. So it says the Gemara. 1 second. Basar v'hadam. So if I just have to offer up the meat and the blood, then top of Peivav yachol yachlot skidin va'atzamos v'yale basar legabi mizbeach. We'll say maybe I would think that what do I have to do? What do they call it? Deboning. Is that I don't know? Is that the term? Right. So I might have thought to say now that the pasuk is telling me that I just offer up basar and dam, maybe that means that dafka I have to remove the flesh from the bone. I have to remove the sinews from the flesh before going ahead and offering it up on the mizbeach. Talmud Lamar v'hiktir hakohen es hakol. Therefore, the pasuk says the kohen shall offer everything. So also we begin to see the tension over here in the psukim. Which one is it? Is it that I offer up basar and dam, just flesh and blood, but not bone, sinews, horns, hoofs? Or do we say v'hiktir hakohen es hakol? Es hakol means what, Rabbi say? Means what? Everything. Everything. So which one is it? HaKetzad. So here we go. Michu barin ya'alu. If everything is attached, in other words, if the meat is on the bone and the sinews and the horns and the hoofs and everything is intact, then you offer everything. So the Gemara says, Pirshu, however, again, if for some reason these items became detached from the animal, the bones, the sinews, the horns, or the hoofs, then what's the halacha? Afilahin barosham mizbeach yerdu. Then I will say, even if they're sitting already on top of the mizbeach, we take them down. In other words, apparently the first resolution the Gemara seems to suggest is, if it's all part of the animal, we offer it all up. If, however, again, any of these parts, bones, sinews, horns, hoofs, become detached, even if they're mamish sitting on top of the mizbeach, we don't offer it up. So the Gemara says, all right, let's analyze this. Mantana, the shamislei the amar pirshu yerdu. I will say, who is the opinion who holds that if halacha lemaisa, the bones, sinews, horns, hoofs become detached, that we don't offer them up on the as part of, on the mizbeach? Who is that? Rebbe. So the Gemara says, apparently this is the opinion of Rebbe. Why? This saying, listen to this brisa, because we learned the following in this brisa. Excuse me. This ayah, v'hikter hakohen es hakol hamizbecha. The pasuk says the kohen shall offer everything up on the mizbeach. L'rabos ha'atzamos v'hagidim v'akarnayim v'atalfayim. That comes to include the bones, the sinews, the horns, and the hoofs. I afilu pershu. So we'll say, and this is true even if what? This is true even if they're separated. Even if they're separated, you still offer it up. I ve'ela ma'ani mekayim va'asisa olasecha ha'basar v'hadam. But 1 second, what do I do with the pasuk that says, you shall offer up your olah? But what does olah include? Only the flesh and the blood, not the horns, the hoofs, the bones, the sinews. So lomar lecha, ikule olah atamachzir, v'atamachzir ikule gidin va'atzamos. So we'll say, this is actually very interesting, and we're going to touch on this a little bit in the next Mishnah. What happens, we'll say, if you have the following situation? What happens if a piece of meat pops off, or something pops off the mizbeach? I use that lashon because that's going to be the lashon that the Mishnah uses. As a result of the fire, sometimes things would pop off, fall off the side of the mizbeach. If something falls off the side, what do you have to put back on the fire versus what can you leave off? So the Gemara Darshan is over here that if you have ikule abos, it means like partly consumed. If you have pieces of the olah that have been burnt on the mizbeach but then fell off the mizbeach, you go ahead and you put it back on. But if you have only a partially consumed gidin va'atzamos, sinews and bones that popped off the mizbeach, that you don't put back on. Rebbe, however, disagrees. Rebbe says, Rebbe Omer, Kasuv Echad Omer v'hiktir hakohen es hakol mizbecha riba. So we'll say one pasuk says the kohen shall offer up everything on the mizbeach. Now that is an all-inclusive pasuk, and everything usually means everything: flesh, blood, hoofs, horns, bones, sinews. V'kasuv echad omer va'asisa lasecha basar v'adam mi'et. But here is the problem. Another pasuk says that what? When it comes to the offering, what should you offer up? Blood and flesh, meaning and not bones, sinews, horns, and hoofs. So how do you reconcile the two? Mechubaran yalu. Pirshu afiluhin barosham mizbeach yerdu. So both say, so Rebbe is the Tana of our Mishnah, and Rebbe is of the opinion that halacha lemaisa, it's efshel kaim shnehem. When the bones, sinews, horns, and hoofs are attached to the flesh, then what? Offer it all up. The moment those items become detached from the flesh, we do not offer them up. Instead, we just offer up the meat, the flesh, as well as the blood. So both say, so it appears that we have a fundamental machlokes over here. The Tanakama, we'll call it the Rabbanon, seem to hold that halacha l'maisa, you offer up the animal in its entirety. Entirety means meat, blood, bones, sinews, horns, hoofs. Everything gets offered up. Even if those items, the bones, the sinews, the horns, and the hoofs become detached, you still go ahead and offer it all up on the mizbeach. So what did the Rabbanon do with the pasuk v'asisa lasecha basar v'adam? They say that teaches me that if flesh falls off the mizbeach, you put it back on. But if bones, sinews, horns, hoofs fall off the mizbeach, then what? You don't put it back on. Rebbe says no. The only time you offer up bones, sinews, horns, and hoofs is when they're attached to the flesh. But if they become detached at any point in time, then what? You don't offer it up. So fundamental machlokes. A little bit weiter. Perishu lo yalus. Remember again, the Mishnah seems to reflect the view of Rebbe, that if these items, the bones, the sinews, the horns, and the hoofs, I just like saying it, the bones, the bones, the horns, and the hoofs become detached, then Allah lamaisa, you do not go ahead and offer it up. So says the Gemara. Sorry. Rabbi Zera says as follows: Lo shanu ela. This is actually very interesting. Shepirshu klape mata. That is only true if what? If they separate. We'll say klape mata. Klape mata means away from the fire of the mizbeach, towards the, closer to the bottom of the ramp of the mizbeach. If they separate out closer towards the bottom, then ultimately again you don't go ahead and offer them. So what this means is, if they separate in a way where they are further from the fire, then halacha l'maisa we don't offer it up. Aval klape mala, but if the bones, sinews, horns, and hoofs become detached from the flesh, but what? They're closer to the fire, kruve hudak grive leikol. Then I will say, then they are in fact even closer to being consumed in the fire, and what? And we do in fact go ahead and offer it up. So the Gemara says, Vafilu perishu. So I don't understand. So you're telling me now that even if the bones, sinews, horns, hoofs become detached from the flesh of the carbon, but they're closer to the fire, that you're going to offer it up? But so that seems to contradict what we said in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said once these items become detached, then what? Then you don't offer it up anymore. Amarabba hachi kamer. This is what it means to say. Lo shanu ella shepirshu la'achar zrika. Both said this is actually very interesting. Sorry. When do we say that ultimately again, lo shanu ella, we only learned if these items became detached after zrika. So we'll say, so what does this mean? If they became detached after Zrika, then Lamaisa, they're part of the carbon. Once you're part of the carbon, you're part of the carbon. And therefore, again, if they are part of the animal at the time of Zrika and only become detached after the Zrika, then Halacha Lamaisa, they have to be offered up on the Mizbeach. Aval Pirshu Kodem Zrika, but listen to this. Let's say the bones, the sinews, the horns, and the hoofs became detached prior to Zrika. So we'll say, what does that mean? That means at the time of Zrika, these items were not part of the flesh and of the blood, which everyone agrees are the primary parts of the carbon. So if they became detached prior to Zrika, then what's the halacha? Asoy Zrika v'sharasinu. So Zrika comes along, permits these items, afilu leme'avad minayo kata desakina, even to allow the kohanim to make knife handles from it. So we'll say, what is this referring to? This is referring, I guess they used to make knife handles from bones of animals. So what the Gemara now seems to be saying about say is as follows: that halacha lemaisa, when do we say that even if the bones, sinews, horns, hoofs became detached from the animal, that they have to be offered up on the mizbeach? That's when they became detached after zrika. Because if you were part of the flesh at the time of zrika, then by definition you are sanctified. If you're sanctified, you have to be offered up on the mizbeach. However, again, if they became detached from the flesh prior to zrika, that means at the time of zrika, again, they were not part of the flesh and of the blood. Then what? They become the property of the kohanim, and the kohanim could use it for whatever they want, meaning the example of making a knife handle out of it just means you could use it for whatever you want.
All Zrika requires is a proper state that the whole thing falls apart after you do.
Absolutely. Or I'd say it a little bit differently. What you need in order to go ahead and effect a proper carbonic offering is you need shrita, obviously, zrika, and you do need flesh and blood. But if any of the what we'll call and the truth is, we even know that even that statement is not totally true, because halacha lamaisa, pretty much once you get to zrika, you're good. But at least to have some type of offering on the mizbeach, all you need is flesh and blood. If any of the other ancillary parts somehow become detached or whatever else happens to them, your carbon is still good. So the Gemara says, "Savarla ki hadam Rabbi Yochanan mishra Rabbi Shmuel." So ultimately, again, he holds. And so we'll say. So I just want to point out, this is a further distinction of Rabbi Zera in the shita of Rebbe. Right, Rebbe's idea ultimately is that everything depends if it's attached to the animal. Rabbi Zera now comes along and gives a further qualification. Rabbi Zera says, essentially, the only time that there's an obligation to burn what we'll call the ancillary parts of the animal, bone, sinews, horns, hoofs, is only when halacha l'maisa, only when they were part of the animal at the time of zrika. But if they had become detached from the animal prior to Zrika, then halacha lemaisa, the Kohen could use those parts of the animal for whatever he wants. So says the Gemara, Savarla ki had the Rabbi Yochanan mish Rabbi Shmuel. So we'll say, so he holds like the statement of Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shmuel. It says what? Ne'emar lo yihyeh ba'ola. We'll say it says by Ola, it shall be his. V'ne'emar lo yihyeh ba'asham. So we'll say this same phrase of it shall be his, which is referring to the Kohen. It uses that lashon by Ola, and it uses that lashon by Asham. Ma Asham atzmosav mutarin. So we'll say mutarin. Just like by Asham, the Kohen is permitted to get benefit from the bones. Af Ola atzamos mutarin. So too by Ola, ultimately again, the bones are permitted as well. So the Gemara says, mufni. We'll say now mufni means that it must be that this lo yihyeh is open and not used for any kind of other drasha. We'll say now what this means is as follows. In general, what we're doing over is we're making a gzera shava, lo yihyeh, from Ola to Asham. And to say that just as Asham, the bones are permitted for mundane, for regular use, so too again, Ola, the bones are permitted for regular use. All the Gemara now says is it must be that phrase lo yihyeh is open. In other words, it's not used for any other kind of drasha. Why? The ilo mufni, because you will say if that lo yihyeh was not open, ikal mifrach, one could pose a pircha to this gzer shav. What's the pircha? Mala asham shekin besaro mutter. We'll say ultimately again you can't compare ola to asham. Why not? Because they will say what happens with an ola after the kohen offers it up? It's the property of the kohen. So obviously again the meat is his as well. If the meat is his, then what? Then it goes without saying that halacha lemaisa the bones are going to be his as well. To which the Gemara says, Lo yiyeh yisir ksiv. The truth is, in the context of Ola, there's an extra lo yiyeh. So the extra phrase is what we darshan to make the comparison between Ola and Asham. To say, just as Asham the bones are permitted, so too by Ola the bones are permitted. I will say, one of the bones permitted in the case of Ola, in the circumstances whereby the meat becomes detached from the bones prior to Zrika, at which point in time then the bones are permitted for Kohanic use. So massive Rav Adabar Ava. So Adabar Ava is Zekasha. At Samos, Kachim, Lifnei Zrika, Malin Bohem. Earlier we learned that the bones of Kachim before Zrika are subject to Me'ilah. La'achar Zrika, in Malin Bohem. Ultimately, again, after Zrika, there is no Me'ilah. V'shal Ola, Malin Bahen Liolam. But I will say the bones of an Ola are always subject to Me'ilah. I will say, and that's contradicting to what we just said. What did we just say before? We just said before that if the bones of the Ola are attached to the flesh at the time of the Zrika, they become prohibited, right? You can't use it. But if they became detached prior to the Zrika, ultimately it's okay. That contradicts what we just said before. Ema v'shel Ola pirshu lifnei Zrika ein molin bahen. La'achar Zrika molin bahen. Rather, you have to do it a little bit differently. So when it comes to an Ola, ultimately, again, if the bones become detached prior to Zrika, there is no Me'ilah. After Zrika, there is Me'ilah. And I will say, by the way, when we say there is Me'ilah, that means it's burnt on the Mizbeach. So the Gemara says, Molin bahen liolam, upliga Rabbi Lazar, da'amar Rabbi Lazar, pirshu lifnei Zrika, Molin bahen. Rabbi Lazar says that if they became detached from the carbon prior to Zrika, there is Me'ilah. La'achar Zrika, lo nanin v'lo molin. Rabbi say after Zrika, Rabbi Lazar says you can't get hana, but there's also no Me'ilah. Rabbi say whenever you see a statement like that it is not subject to Me'ilah, but it is prohibited by hana, Rabbi say, what does that tell you? That tells you that it's an Isser Derabanan. Because again, in general, on a biblical level, if there's Me'ilah, you can't get hana. If there's no Me'ilah, then what? Then you can get hana. Whenever we say lo molin v'lo nanin, ultimately, again, that means that it is aser midrabanan. So we'll say, so that closes out this particular sugya over here. I'll just say something interesting. The Rambam, we're gonna kind of link these two Mishnayos together, but the Rambam over here writes as follows. The Rambam says, listen to this, I'm gonna read this to you. He says, should I read it to you now? Yeah, I'll read it to you now. Fine, twisted my arm. So the Rambam says, this is in Perek Shishi, the 6th chapter, Ma'aseh Karbanos, Halacha Beis. The Rambam over here is dealing with the halachos of an Ola. So watch this. Semer shebereshei kvasim V'ser shebezakin atiyashim. So we'll say, so leaving aside the hair of the animal, here's what we're going to be focused on. Ha'atzamos v'hagidim v'akanayim v'atalfayim. When it comes to the bones, the sinews, the horns, and the hoofs, what am I allowed to do, not allowed to do with them as part of the olah? So here we go. Bizman shein mechubarin. So we'll say, how do we pass? And the Rambam says, when those items are attached to the carbon itself, right? When you have the bones, the sinews, the horns, and the hoofs, when they are attached to the actual animal, then what's the halacha? Maktirin asakol. You burn everything. Vim pirshu. We'll say, what happens if they separate it off? Let's say the flesh was removed from the bones, the hoofs were cut off, the horns were cut off. What's the halacha? Lo ya'alu. They are not offered up. Shne'emar basisa olosecha habasar v'hadam. So I say, so halacha l'maaseh, interestingly enough, the Rambam doesn't make the distinction before Zviga, after Zviga. That has ramifications legabe me'ilah, which we're not going to get into me'ilah now. I will say, but for our purposes now, the Rambam paskins, when bones, sinews, horns, hoofs are part of the animal proper, then what? Offered up on the Mizbeach. The moment they become detached, they are not offered up on the Mizbeach. And that is halacha l'maisa. Good, I'll say next Mishnah. B'chulan, I'll say continuation kind of the same theme. Says the Mishnah. The Kulan, both say, follow up over here. The Kulan shapakum me'agabe mizbeach lo yachzir. Now both says the follow up. What happens if these items literally pakur? Both say means popped off. As a result of the heat, you have a sacrificial part, a sacrificial piece, which pops off the mizbeach. So what happens if it pops off? Lo yachzir. So both say Kulan. Rashi says over here, Kulan. Rashi says. Look at the first Rashi in the Mishnah of Chulan. Hanach psulin sha'alu disnan bohen lo yerdu ben atzamos v'gidin shehelan mechubar v'achaltan ha'ish. We'll say any of these items that we spoke about that shouldn't be placed on the mizbeach, but if they were placed on the mizbeach, we don't take them down. If they popped off the mizbeach, lo yachzir, which we'll say is a logical statement. In other words, we've spoken about. We now have two different categories of items. We have one category of items that should not be placed on the Mizbeach because they're really disqualified. But once they're placed there, we don't take them down. Second category, which we just saw in the previous Mishnah, which is what? Items which do not belong on the Mizbeach, and if you place them there, what? You take them down. Now the Mishnah says, when dealing with the first category, which are the items which if placed on the Mizbeach, ultimately again, should not be taken down, if they popped off as a result of the heat of the Mizbeach, lo yachzir, we don't put it back. Similarly, again, if you have a coal, right? The gachala is a coal which popped off the mizbeach, you don't put that back either. If you have limbs of a carbon which popped off the mizbeach, so this is actually an interesting case which presumably happened, I don't know, on a frequent basis, because remember again, what do you do at night? There's no official karbanos at night. So what do you do at night? And what are the Kohanim doing all evening in the Beis HaMikdash? So they burn the leftovers. Any leftovers, fats, limbs of any karbanos, they place them zech, and that burns throughout the night. So I say, so what happens if some limbs, evarim shepako me'agavim mizbeach? So you have some carbonic pieces, some carbonic limbs, which popped off the mizbeach. So what do I do with them? So the Mishnah gives a very interesting distinction here. Kodem chatzos yachzir. So I'll say ultimately again, if it pops off before chatzos, midnight, you put it back on. Umolen bohen. And I will say, because I have an obligation to put them back on, what that tells me is what? It's still considered to be a sacrificial part, and therefore if you use it for your own mundane use, you have violated the laws of Me'ilah. Remember, the laws of Me'ilah is whenever you use consecrated property for some type of mundane use. So if it pops off before chatzos, then what? You have to put it back on. And if you don't put it back on and you use it for some type of mundane use, then halacha l'maisa, it's subject to me'ilah. La'achar chatzos, we'll say what happens if it pops off after chatzos. So la'achar chatzos, lo yachzir, you do not have to put it back on the mizbeach. And I will say ultimately again, there is no me'ilah, which I will say is something very interesting over here. So the Mishnah seems to indicate that the halacha that determines whether or not you have to put back on a popped off limb is all dependent on what? time. Fascinating, right? If before chatzos, you got to put it back on. After chatzos, you don't have to put it back on. Very interesting. We'll discuss it more. Kashem sham mizbeach mekadesh es haroilo. We'll say first wide line at the bottom of Pei Vav Amud Aleph. The same way that the mizbeach consecrates that which is fit for it, kach hakevesh mekadesh. So to Rabbi say the ramp of the mizbeach also has the ability to go ahead and sanctify items as well. In other words, Rabbi saying what the Mishnah is saying is as follows: the same way we've learned that certain things, once they are placed on the mizbeach, are not taken down. That is not just the din by the mizbeach proper, i.e. the top part of the altar, but it applies to the ramp of the altar as well. Once it's put on the kevesh itself sanctifies. Kashem sham mizbeach va'kevesh mekachin es haroy lahem, kach hakelim mekachin. I will say again, we'll discuss the parameters of this as well, the same way that now we've seen that the mizbeach as well as the ramp have the ability to sanctify items which are placed on them. So too, if you have an item which is placed in the kli sharis, a service utensil, that service utensil sanctifies it as well. Again, we'll see the ramifications of that halacha in just a little bit. So we'll say, here we go. Hechi dami. The Gemara is bothered by the statement in the Mishnah. Which statement? The statement of chatzos. That's the Gemara is going to focus on over here. What does it mean that if you have a sacrificial limb that popped off before chatzos, you put it back on, and after chatzos, you don't put it back on? So we'll say, what's bothering the Gemara over here is I would have thought that the halacha as to when you have to put back a sacrificial limb should be a halacha that is dependent on the status of the limb, not what time it says on my watch. So the Gemara says, hey chidami, what's the case? Ide isbahu mamish. If l'maisa say there's still meat on the bones, right? Meaning isbahu means if literally again there's still meat, or the limb is still mamish, a piece of meat, then what? Afila achar chatzos nami. The Rebbe say I don't understand. Meaning if it's still a piece of meat. In other words, let's say again let's say there is literally still meat on the bone of the limb. So who cares what time it is? Before chatzos, after chatzos, the halacha should be what? I should have to return it. Either less boom mamish. On the flip side, let's say the limb burned very quickly, so that it's 11 o'clock at night. But yet again, pretty much there's no more tsura of meat anymore, right? It's been totally incinerated. Then even if it pops off before chatzos, I should what? I should not be obligated to put it back. So the Gemara is asking over here is, I don't understand why this halacha is dependent before chatzos, after chatzos. There should be a din in the status of the meat on the limb. So the Gemara says, so again, either isbu mamish, if there's mamish still meat on the bones, afila achar chatzos nami, then halacha l'maaseh should be obligated to return it to the fire, even after chatzos. Either less buhu mamish, if on the flip side again there's no meat on the bones, then afilu kodim chatzos nami lo, that even before chatzos I should not be obligated to return the limb back to the mizbeach. To which the Gemara says, lo tzricha, what's the case? Here we go, Bosai. What's the case? Sorry. What's the case? Bishariri. Peivav Amud Beis. Bosai, what's the case of Shariri? Look at Rashi. Koshin, top Rashi, Peivav Amud Beis. Koshin, sheniskashu machmas ha'ish, shesholta bekulon, v'nisrafu, ela shalo na'aseh pecham, ela ke'itzim yeveshim hemisocham. Let's listen to this. Shariri refers to the state where the limb still looks like a limb. In other words, it hasn't disintegrated into a coal. It still looks like a limb. I will say, but what's happened? There's no more moisture in the meat. In other words, the meat itself, the flesh, has become hardened to the point that it's no longer usable, or it's recognizable as a limb, but there's no consumption possibility anymore. So we'll say, so it's not coal, it's not a coal, because coal, remember again, is that no longer even looks like a limb. On the other hand, it can't be considered meat because it has no moisture, so it's hard as the coal, but still has not the image, but the form of a limb. Shabbos, in a case like this, and you look at that Rashi once more. Bishiriri, Koshin, it's very hard. Shenes kashu machmas ha'ish, it's been hardened as a result of the fire, i.e., there's no more moisture in it. Sheshalta b'kulam v'nisrafu, and it's been burned. Ella shelo na'aseh pechem, but it hasn't yet been made into a coal. Ella ke'itzim yeveshim heimisocham. So the flesh is there, but the flesh is as dry as a piece of wood. So Rabbi said, in this kind of case, so the Gemara is suggesting, this is what the Mishnah is referring to. This type of piece of meat, where what? Where halacha l'maisa still has the tsura, the image of a limb, but it clearly has no meat moisture. So what do you do with this type of limb? And the answer is, it depends. If it's before chatzos, because it still has the tsura, the form of a limb, then what do you do with it? You put it back on. If it pops off after chatzos, then ultimately, again, because it has no meat moisture, and therefore, again, effectively, it's like coal, but it has the tsura of a limb, then you don't put it back on. So it says the Gemara, so from where do we know this from? So where do we know about the chatzos cutoff? All right, so now I understand what case we're referring to, but where do I learn that concept that chatzos is like the cutoff? Before chatzos, put the limb back on. After chatzos, where does that come from? So Gemara says, I'll tell you where. Amarav, so Rav says, Kasuv echad omer kol halayla vehiktir, the kasuv echad omer kol halayla vehirim. So we'll say one pasuk says the entire night it shall burn, and one pasuk says ultimately again that the entire night vehirim it shall be lifted up. So we'll say, so here's what's interesting. Now the truth is the Gemara is not quoting the actual psukim; it's quoting words from the psukim. But the idea is, I seem to have contradictory inferences. One pasuk seems to tell me that haloch l'maisa, meat must be left on the mizbeach the entire night, and only once it burns the entire night is it fit for trumas hadashim, which means the removal of ash the next morning. The other pasuk seems to tell me kol halayla vehirim, seems to indicate to me that what? That haloch l'maisa, once the limbs are placed on the mizbeach to burn, it's already considered like ash immediately. So now I have two contradictory inferences from the psukim. One pasuk seems to tell me that in order for the carbon to be considered ash, it has to burn the entire night. And one pasuk seems to tell me that in order for the carbon to be considered ash, once you place it there and even it burns for a little bit, it's automatically considered ash. So the Gemara says, so which one is it? Oh, I'll tell you, chalkeyu. Torah, therefore, what's the resolution of both sides? The resolution is you have to split the night into two. Chatziav lahak Torah, the first part of the night, i.e., nightfall up until chatzos, is for burning sacrificial limbs on the mizbeach. But after midnight, the chatziav laharama. But say after midnight already, whatever is burning is considered to be ash. And at that point in time, you could even do trumas hadash. You could even do the lifting up of the ash already from midnight and on. So Gemara says, one second, let's analyze this. So the Gemara says, Masiv Rav Kahana. So Rav Kahana raises a kasha. B'chol yom, Torei mes hamizbeach mikros hagever o samuch lo. Milefanov o me'achrav. So also listen to this. We're now talking about, again, when Trumas Hadesh. Remember, the first avoda of the day that was done in the Beis HaMikdash was the Trumas Hadesh, which means the removal of ash. So now the Bryce over is going to talk about when that removal of ash was done. On a regular day, it was normally done at the time we call Kros HaGever. What's like Kros HaGever means literally, again, it can mean one of two things. Either the crowing of the rooster, or what's like Kros HaGever can mean there was like a Kohen who was like the Vecker, right? Meaning it was his job, ultimately, again, to go around and wake everyone up. So either way, this was pre-dawn, immediately pre-dawn. So on a regular day, Trumas Hadeshin was done at dawn, pre-dawn, a little bit before, a little bit afterwards. Now look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi's massive Rav Kahana, Adrav Damar Chatziav LaHarama, Demashra Kodim Chatzos Lav Shas Haramahi, Afilo Menas. Remember again, just before we get into this Rav Kahana's kasha, what we have up until what we've just established based on the previous drasha is that midnight is the cutoff. The first part of the night is for the burning of the sacrificial limbs. Becomes midnight, anything that's on the mizbeach is designated as what? As ash. And from midnight and on, pretty much you could do Trumas Hadeshin, but not before midnight. So okay, so now it kind of comes along and says, okay, let's talk a little bit about the schedule of the Beis HaMikdash. We'll say, this is actually a beautiful Gemara. So on a general day, on a regular day in the Beis HaMikdash, so when would they do Trumas Hadeshin? When would they remove the ash? Mikros HaGever, from dawn, the crowing of the rooster, or when the Kohen is waking everyone up. O samach lo, milafanav o me'acharav. A little bit before, a little bit after dawn, but around dawn was the time they would do Trumas Hadeshin. Okay, fine. B'yom Kippurim, We'll say, what about Yom Kippur? When would they do Trumas Hadeshen? This is amazing. Bechatzos. We'll say, by Yom Kippur, they would do Trumas Hadeshen already at midnight. Now, why would they do it at midnight? So we'll say, understand, the Kohen is very, very busy on Yom Kippur. There is a lot going on Yom Kippur. So therefore, in order to kind of lighten the load a little bit, they would do Trumas Hadeshen, removal of the ash of the Mizbeach, a little bit earlier than normal. So normally you would do it at dawn, because the Avodah of Yom Kippur already begins at daytime, so that we take care of the Trumas Hadeshen a little bit earlier in the evening, or a little bit earlier in the morning, at midnight. Bir Regalim, both said, get ready for this. What about the Regalim? Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot. When would they do Trumas Hadeshen? Ba'ashmores Harishona. We'll say already after the first third of the night. And for our purposes, when is that? When is that? Before midnight. So if Kahana comes along and says, Rav, you just told me before that what? That Allah Chalamai said the earliest time for Trumas Hadeshen is when? Midnight, Chatzos. Up until Chatzos, everything burns on the Mizbeach. After Chatzos is the earliest time for removal of the ash. And yet when it comes to the Regalim, they were removing the ash already after the first third of the night, which is before Chatzos. So the Gemara says, V'sakadaitcha mechatzos de'oraisa. And if you want to say that ultimately again, that the earliest time for Trumas Hadeshen is midnight, meaning the limbs have to burn up until midnight, the earliest time to take off the ash is midnight. Heichi mekadminan. How is it that on the Regalim, they were able to remove the ash on the Mizbeach earlier than midnight? So here we go. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says as follows: Mimashma shene'emar kol halayla. Since the pasuk says that you have to allow the limbs to burn on the Mizbeach all night. So once you say all night, Ini yodea shad haboker. I know that all night means what? All night means until the morning. Why does the pasuk therefore have to say until the morning as well? So we'll say what the Gemara is pointing out over here is the pasuk says, "Hiya ola al mukta al mizbeach kol halayla ad haboker." So we'll say once you're telling me that the ola, the leftover limbs, have to be left on the mizbeach kol halayla all night, I don't need the phrase ad haboker. Because by definition, Rabbi say, what does kol halayla mean? Right? Until the morning. So why, if you're already telling me that it has to remain on the mizbeach the entire night, why do you then go back and say ad haboker? Here we go. Tein lo boker libakro. Libakro shalayla. Rabbi say teaches me, ad haboker means that sometimes halacha says morning comes even earlier than regular morning. In other words, Rabbi say ad haboker means tein boker libakro shalayla. Provide an extra boker to the nighttime, which means sometimes for Trumas Hadeshen, you wait until actual morning. So that's like a regular day in the Beis HaMikdash. You just wait until actual morning, and sometimes you have an even earlier morning. What does even earlier morning of Osai means? That sometimes even earlier than Chatzos, you can begin removing the ash. Hilchach kol yoma, on a regular day in the Beis HaMikdash, mikros hagever sagi. So therefore, again, on a regular day in the Beis HaMikdash, when do we remove the ash? When do you remove the ash? When? Regular day? Right? Regular morning. Dawn. We'll call it dawn. We'll say these are important halachas to know. On a regular day in the Beis HaMikdash, you remove the ash first thing in the morning. Dawn. What we call kros hagever. Biyom Kippurim, on Yom Kippur, mishum chosha de kohen gadol, mechatzos. Both on Yom Kippur, because literally chosha de kohen gadol means what? Because of the weakness of the Kohen Gadol. But what it really means in this context of Osai is, because the Kohen Gadol has a lot to do on the day of Yom Kippur, we allow him to do Trumas Hadeshen already as of midnight. Beregalim, and on the Yom Tovim, Dinefishe Karbanos, and on the Regalim, I have to understand something. On the Regalim, there was an incredible carbonic volume. Why is that? Because remember again, what happens on the Regalim of Osai? What happens? Everyone has an obligation for Aliyah L'Regel to come up, which means they're supposed to understand what's happening. So first of all, on Yom Tov, there's an obligation to offer up a carbon chagiga. So everyone's bringing up their Yom Tov karbanos. But also, not only that, what else are you bringing up on Yom Tov? Right? Musaf, what else are you bringing up? Musaf is a carbon seaboard. What else are you bringing up? I will say, think about this in just a moment. Over the course of the year, inevitably, you have karbanos that you're bringing up, right? right? So the Zifras and the Almonds have to bring up, right, carbon leda, right? And other mishpachos have to bring up carbon chatos. Not the Zifras and the Almonds, so other families, right? And other have a carbon chatos. And this, that. So we'll say over the course of the year, you have carbonos you have to bring. Now the truth is, if I'm living, in the Golan, I'm not, and I accidentally flipped the light switch on Shabbos. I'm not making the trip Sunday morning to Yerushalayim. I'm going to wait till the next Yom Tov. And whenever the next Yom Tov is, because remember, again, you're allowed to do that. You don't have to bring your Kabbalah. You can wait till the next Yom Tov. So we'll say, so you have to understand something. What that means is, on the Regalim, you not only have Klal Yisrael converging upon the Beis HaMikdash, bringing their Yom Tov offerings, but everyone is also using this pilgrimage opportunity to bring all of the carbonic obligations they amassed throughout the year. There is a huge volume of karbanos. Because of that, on Yom Tovim, we allowed the Kohen Gadol to do the Trumas Hadeshin even as a Vonabosai after the first third of the night, which is already before Chatzos. He says, Beregalim, the Nefishe Karbanos, on the Yom Tov, when there are so many Karbanos, the Kadmi, also, right, the Kadmi also Yisrael Ashmoras Harishona. So we'll say ultimately, again, Klal Yisrael is already amassing in the courtyard, already in the wee hours of the morning. So we allow Trumas Hadeshin to be done even when? Even Halacha Lamaisa, before Chatzos, after the first third of the night. Kidik Tani Seifa, as well as the end of the Brisa says, Lo Haisa Kriyas HaGever Magas. So we'll say, listen to this beautiful scene. On Yom Tov, even before the rooster would begin to crow, even in the pre-dawn hours, at Shahaisa Azara Melea Misrael. But can you imagine that scene? Can you imagine that scene? Already before dawn, and this is before they started serving, right, mizonos and coffee at the kotel, right? This right. So it's already before dawn. What happens? The Azara, the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash, was filled with Jews. So because there was such high carbonic volume, therefore what? Trumas Hadeshin was done even after the first day. So we'll say, so this, by the way, is a very beautiful and important takeaway, right? And this is a piece of, and this is just something to remember. Schedule of the Beis Hamikdash. When was the ash removed? Remember again, normal circumstances, just to understand what's happening here. The first avoda of the day was Trumas Hadeshin, removal of the ash from the Mizbeach. When was that done? Rabbi says timeline is a takeaway. When was that done? And the answer is, it depends. On a regular day, when was it done? What we call Kros HaGever, dawn. Now, that could be a little bit before dawn, a little bit after dawn, at dawn, but we'll call it dawn for our purposes. Right? On a regular day, dawn. Right? Yom Kippur, when was it done? Chatzos. Why? We'll say in the interest of that has nothing to do with volume. That has to do. That's Rachmanos on the Kohen Gadol. We'll say it's interesting. By the way, some of the Rishonim say that what happened over here is that the Kohen Gadol would do the avoda of Trumas Hadeshin at midnight, and he would catch a couple of hours of sleep. But that doesn't seem to make much sense because the Mishnayos and Yuma say that they didn't let the Kohen Gadol sleep the night of Yom Kippur. So whatever's happening, it sounds like just in order to just let's I don't want to say Chashom get it out of the way, but because Yom Kippur was such a packed day, we do Trumas Hadeshin early, give them a couple of hours of downtime, right, and then begin the avodah of Yom Kippur at daybreak, at dawn. On the Regalim, when would they go out and do Trumas Hadeshin? After what we call, after the first third of the night. The night is divided up into three parts. After the first third, which for our purposes, what we will call that is prior to Chatzos. So we'll say ultimately again, that halacha l'maisa is the seder for Trumas Hadeshin. We'll say we'll stop over here for today. For Emirat Hashem, we'll pick up on the bottom of Pei Vav Amud Beis Emirat Hashem tomorrow. Shkoyach.
So how long does Trumas Hadeshin take? You can't start doing korbanos until...
No, but it's done. But it's one lesson. Remember, again, Hadeshin is also taking michutz lamach. So the idea over here is it's the removal. It's a lot of movement around. So it's just one thing less for him to do that day.
So maybe I understand on Yom Kippur, but that's really early to be taking it out. It's not gonna. You can't start bringing korbanos until they have to bring the tummy first.
People were there. The point is the base of the Azara is filling up.